You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation.
Welcome to Chief Speaks.
All music performed and produced by Yu Ya.
Enlightenment and transformation. Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadows of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie wait in the dark that transform us and propel us to a new enlightened state. One should neither aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but should journey between the two in order to evolve the overall reality into a self-actualized creation. Knowledge is your light as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the universe you've created. Male is your enlightenment. Female is your transformation. Child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness so it may enlighten you. Man, bring your light boldly into the darkness so that it may transform you. Enlightenment and transformation.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done for me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today, and I'm so thankful.
That's his home.
Therefore, now a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, where there may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very clear.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the current events thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters, quote unquote. I talk about spiritual stuff, but I also speak about some very practical, we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be with your spiritual self. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are just as corrupted as everything else, your chakras and everything else. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. We can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, most, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hands. And if you still have a dirty spirit, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where I make myself obsolete. That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big you up. I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter and stuff like that, but they want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't even. Your spirituality has to create sane spiritual family. Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first. Okay, don't let communities hijack that rainbow. See, the problem is when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call him, we're like, you going to church? And I'm like, where have y'all been at?
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God, so therefore the spiritual community doesn't recognize God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside of the books for a second and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? What are we doing? It's a good day for an exorcism.
I was told once by a great teacher of mine, you gotta feel that pain, that's what you're built for. Suck it up and live it up. The pain hurts, the struggle is real. I know, I know, I know. I push past it, it continue my bill. That's how it goes, it goes, it goes. I get it in, man, fuck how you feel. I know, I know, I know. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. There ain't no turning back. dealt with a double-headed axe, fire and light and they melt. Move with tactics and strategies, not on how I felt. In the fight for life, I'm earning my black belt. Master status apparatus, using my talents and breath. All the malice tries to knock me off my balance and step. In my sacred challenge, there's black magic descended to death. Ain't no retreat, no surrender, the pressure enhances my step. Two machetes to clear the path on anything that stands against my intelligence. To the blood I give reverence, cause it's my ancestors that made me who I am in this life sentence. Ain't no getting scared, I got an iron heart, and I'm fully armored with the consciousness and the ability to move forward. So get on the train or get ran over. Unity's on my mind and I'll be damned if you break my focus. The pain hurts, the struggle is real. I know, I know, I know. I push past it, continue my build. That's how it goes, it goes, it goes. I get it in, man, fuck how you feel. I know, I know, I know. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. Connection that I'm working on, sunrise to dawn. Blood in my veins pump forward, heart drums a perfect song. So I push along, fair warning to the ones who want to stop my progress or knock me off my throne. In my path I don't stand alone. I got warriors, chiefs, elders, children, witches, maidens in the chrome. Every step that I take shines remarkable like Rome. Every link that I make made the chain more strong. The light that shares shines bright like a star. Every yard that we take, God is thanking her all. We experience the fall, so time to rise real tall. Break the bondage, break free from what traps us all. Magnetic relationships that's reflected in the mirror. Decipher what's real and we'll see much clearer. Beauty's only seen through the eyes of the starer. So if you're trying to collapse the intent, you best be real careful. The pain hurts, the struggle is real. I know, I know, I know. I push past it and continue my build. That's how it goes, it goes, it goes. I get it in, man, fuck how you feel. I know, I know. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. There ain't no turning back, ain't no turning back. Gotta get past all those emotions, man. Stay on your strategy. Devise the tactics. There's no taking down the iron wall. Yeah. Keep playing with me, you're gonna run right into that smash.
All right, peace, greetings, and welcome everyone to Chief Speaks on Enlightenment and Transformation. Welcome, of course, all of you first-time listeners, as always, and for you traditional or historical listeners and watchers and participants, welcome to you. And of course, last but certainly not least, let me send a spirit of welcome to all of you who will be tuning into this whenever you get there. Most likely in the archives, maybe tomorrow or the day after, or maybe the year or the year after, or even further out. So let me just welcome you well. You're just as welcomed and just as critical to this experience as everyone else. All right. So that was Brother Anwar. That was a track he actually sent me that he did. I don't think it's finished, but he's sitting on it for so long. I said, well, if I could play my unfinished stuff, I'm gonna play your unfinished stuff. So yeah, just sharing. It's always good when the family takes the opportunity to compile what they've been learning and what they've been experiencing and journeying through in terms of this learning journey, and express it through what's sacred to them. So music is a very sacred art form and expression for Anwar. So he utilizes that, sometimes to express what he wants to say. So, that always should be supported. That always should be supported when people are offering a pure or sacred expression of their own personal genius. Because sometimes often overlooked. Very similar to what I spoke about last Sunday in terms of having ideas and sometimes forsaking the blessing, we'll say, or the ire, the fortune, and the gift of being able to process and analyze, and just to consume and synthesize life's experiences. Sometimes we forsake that value, and we focus more on what we're actually looking at. So it's the same thing with our genius. When you get to a point where you're able to find your genius, that's really a glorious thing. Many people travel through the world and you ask them, so, hey, what do you do? I don't know what I can do. I don't know. They have no sense of their own genius, their own personal and unique expression, and how that expression intertwines and aligns itself with their pathways to their purpose. So when you have that opportunity to express genius, or you have an opportunity to experience someone else's genius, it's important to celebrate it. It really is important to celebrate it. But anyway, as you all know, we've been dealing with the concept of the undeveloped this month. And again, I know you're gonna say it again. I'm gonna say it again. Not just speaking about the underdeveloped, but the undeveloped. Okay, so we're not speaking about the underdeveloped at all, actually, but the undeveloped. Okay, and really what that looks like, and sometimes how it looks inside of us, even in our moments when we're studious and we're quiet, and our sense of knowing and being has emerged, and we feel like, well, I got this thing. I've connected to my own oneness and to the spirit of all. And then sometimes we find out, through analysis and through feedback, no, you're still moving as an undeveloped person, and that's okay. There's a process that we all are required to go through, man. And as long as you are living within this body pyramid, that we call humanity, there's going to be some flaws. You can't get away from that. There's going to be some flaws, so that's not something you ever really want to get down on yourself too much for, even though I know it's hard, but yeah, as long as we're in this cage, there's going to be some work to do. Bottom line, there's going to be some work that you need to do. So we've been speaking about just, again, spotting some of those energies or that lack of development within ourselves, and then of course being able to spot it when necessary in others around us, and really speaking to how that may affect our movements, affect the spirits that are around us, and affect our own levity and livity. By levity, I mean our ability to excel, our ability to ascend, our ability to escalate our current position. Sometimes like we call it dead weight, right? Sometimes we have so much dead weight around us that we lose sight of our own flight capabilities. We kind of forget, or we don't realize that maybe we only have enough force and propulsion to lift ourselves. We can't lift the whole neighborhood. We can't lift the block, and we can't lift the entire house. We can't even lift possibly our children, no matter how much we love them. They have to receive their own gems and then utilize them and then assail themselves, So at some point you realize that everyone has a set of wings that they have to utilize, and they can't hold on to your legs while you try to fly, or you just won't fly. You'll be stuck. So yeah, man, we were hitting a lot of those different points and those different ideas, and look again, like I said, looking at how it plays out internally and how it plays out in our external circle. And before I move on, I just want to share, after that recap of what we've been touching upon, we have a men's call this Sunday. All right, so for all of you men who are in the ministry, it's a new number, and the email was sent out providing you with the new number. All right. So if you want to be on that call, man, just, make the call. You know what to do. I mean, it's not that hard. So just make the phone call. All right. Yeah. So the men's call today, I think it's at 1. I'm not saying the time because I don't want to mess it up. It's 1 o'clock, I believe, right? Anwar, just, I know you're in the group. Just correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure the men's call is at 1 p.m. today. So anyway, let's get into a little bit of this and, start winding ourselves down. We're over halfway through the month. And this topic we've touched upon several times, and, this being, I think our fourth, because this month had 5 Sundays, and really had an opportunity to really pick it apart and look at it. And, I know it's one of those type of topics that listening to, yes, 1 o'clock. Okay. Thank you, Anwar. So yeah, the show is at, the call is at 1 p.m. So, I know it's one of those type of topics, but I was going to say that can really lead to a high level of conviction, where you start looking at some of these things within yourself. And, like I said, despite how much you may have grown and excelled and, really have developed, you may realize, wow, I have so much further to go. Or maybe this thing has been a stumbling block, and there's certain precepts that I haven't really applied to my life. And as a result, I haven't developed at the level that I have, or haven't developed certain components within me, that need to be developed, like, my sense of compassion, or my sense of love, or, my sense of giving, and so forth and so on. So it gives you an opportunity to really kind of look at it, sit back and see what's going on, and, one of the things I want you to be real sensitive to, man, when you're dealing with development is your internal structure. There's so many different working parts that go into the makings of you, as Curtis Mayfield and Gladys Knight would say. But there's so many different working parts that go into the making of you. And the truth is, some of us have never been taught intrapersonal intelligence, not even interpersonal intelligence. That's why we don't have any friends. People are always running away from us. But, that intrapersonal intelligence is the intelligence and the logic, or just the cognition that we use inside of ourselves, right? So like when you have interpersonal intelligence, for instance, you kind of basically, how to conduct yourself in external social situations. You can go to the grocery store and act right. Then you can go to the mechanics and act right. Then you can go to your priest and act right. And, maybe your grandfather or your uncle, or so forth and so on. But, you're able to kind of move through your social situations with a level of intelligence and deal with people. Really, that's what it really is. Being able to deal with people in a manner that's intelligent. And when we have intrapersonal communication, it's the same exact thing, except it's internal. It's just like some of you may work on jobs, and you have your company may have a website. You may have an internet website, and then you may have an internal website that's just for employees, which is usually referred to as the intranet. You see, so the intranet or the intra. Once you hear that prefix, you're dealing with the internal, right? And a lot of us, like I said, haven't really been taught. I'm looking for something over here. I can't find it. There we go. A lot of us haven't really been taught to develop, or even that it exists, that there's an intrapersonal intelligence, and that revolves around learning how to put in proper perspective the different components of you. So for instance, a situation happens, right? And you're upset, and your mind is telling you, I feel like I was getting ready to say that damn R. Kelly song, but your mind is telling you one thing, right? Don't react this way. But your emotions are leading you and pushing you into another direction. And then as a result, your actions are taking you to a direction that you really didn't cognitively want to go into, You see, now in situations like that, we see that there's a breakdown in terms of the intrapersonal intelligence, where your internal components are not really speaking to each other. They're not really working in coalition with each other, you know. Or sometimes you have a situation where you become fearful and you don't really know how to put your fear in proper perspective, so you freeze up, you know, or you begin to respond and react to certain situations based on your fear, which is very common. You know, that's very common, because a lot of times, and a lot of us, we have an underlying spirit of fear that exists within our subconscious, and we're filled with it. And the subconscious, you know, being that more powerful aspect of your cognition, is going to rule everything that you're going to do. You know, you can't really get around it. Only thing you can really do is reprogram it, right? So if you have a subconscious mind that's filled with fear, regardless of how much you put the warrior stamp on you, no matter how many tattoos you get, you know, or how many initiations you go through, or how many bandanas you put on your head, if you have a subconscious that's filled with fear, then what's going to happen is that there's going to be a dissonance between what it is that you're saying, what it is that you're consciously thinking, and the actual energy and force that instinctually is propelling you towards certain actions. You see, so your interpersonal intelligence says, you know, it allows you to really sit almost like Haru, almost like the Falcon, and sit and kind of oversee all of the different internal functions of where you're at, and then make intelligent decisions based upon that. So you might say, okay, this is happening. You know, I just got a letter from the bank. They're going to repossess my car. You know, I'm 2 payments late or something, whatever. And you may be able to say, okay, I am afraid to have my car taken. And you're able to put that and marginalize it, really, and put it into its own space. But at the same time, you're able to think rationally. You're able to think pragmatically. So you've acknowledged the emotion that's there. You've acknowledged that, yeah, there's some fear here. And you've put it in its proper perspective. And then now you say, okay, so what are we going to do based on this fear? So you're able to still function through some of your maybe your emotional distortions. See, now a lot of us, we were never taught that. So we have this fight or flight response constantly. You know, somebody says something we don't like, either we shut down, you know, I ain't gonna talk to him, you know, I'm cut him off, you know, or we spaz out. You know, we just start flipping out on people. So it's always fight or flight, because we haven't really developed stronger systems and senses of interpersonal intelligence. So even in our spiritual development, sometimes that's something that trips us up. That's something that comes behind us and knocks the wind out of us. You know, we can talk a good game. We can quote things. We can read the books. We can, you know, do all of those different things. But then when some real confrontations and some real situations come to us, how do we respond? Like, how do all of our engine parts, you know, our ego, our drive, you know, our emotions, our body, our kinesthetic intelligence, you know, our left brain logical thinking, our right brain abstract, you know, thinking, how do all of those things now go into action? Or are we now going into our situations with half a brain? You know, like, and sometimes, let me see, I need to drink some more. Sometimes through our conscious explorations and our conscious, what we consider to be development, we learn to lean in one direction and then pride ourselves in that. And what I mean by that is this. So many of us are now aware, you know, again, through our conscious explorations, that the Anglosphere, or what we may even call Western culture and society, even though there is a strong effeminization agenda, it is primarily lent and leaning towards left brain activity. And left brain activity is what, you know, that's the left brain. You're dealing with your logical mind, right? Your linear thinking, your pragmatic thought, really where you learn the rules and you learn to follow the rules, and you learn to see the rules, you know, as a valuable gem to whatever it is that you're doing. You see, you learn to see the rules as that. So, you know, for instance, let's say if you move into a neighborhood and there's no fire department, There's no street lights. There's no, we could deal without the police force, but let's just no fire department. There's no street lights. There's no Department of Sanitation. There's not even a stop sign. So there's no structure and rules. So, if you think about it from a value perspective, how much would a home in that neighborhood really cost? They'd probably be free because there's no rules. So you can just go and take the home because you pretty much would be in a lawless place in that sense. Okay. So based on that, thank you, Brother Achilles. I hear Brother Achilles says I have no sound. I think I do have sound though. You might need to refresh your browser. All right. But if somebody else says I don't have sound, then I'll concede. But what I was saying. So yeah, so in a space like that, you obviously would look at it and say, okay, well, there's really very little value here because of the lack of rules, because of the lack of structure. You see? So the left brain thinking helps you to kind of cognate that. It helps you to see that. The right brain thinking is thinking outside of, it's bending the rules. It's going beyond the rules and things like that. Okay, thank you, love. Okay, yeah, I think that's just on your end, Achilles, as far as the sound. Right? So we know that in this society, or again, the Anglosphere, there's a strong leaning on the linear, and there really isn't a whole lot of emphasis or stress placed on the right brain, which is the feminine aspect, the more abstract aspect, the more fluid aspect, and most importantly, the more creative aspect. You see, creativity is not really a huge thing here because most of the development that's done in the West is done through emulation. So you'll have someone like Bill Gates who will just say, well, I don't need to come up with new technology. I'll just co-opt your technology. So and that's a form of growth. It's different forms. You can grow through emulation, or you can grow through evolution, where you're actually innovating and coming up with different things and whatever, right? So, but again, we live in a society, and I want to make it clear that even though we live in a society that is strongly left brain centered, really dealing with the linear aspect and the pragmatic aspects, like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that we don't live in a society that is strongly moved and urging towards the effeminization of the actual culture, because the effeminization of the culture. Okay, Royal Honey Jaha says she can hear. I think it may be on you guys end. Maybe something's coming in and out on your end. Okay, I got 2 people saying they can't hear. All right, so let's see. I don't know. Everything looks good on my end. I think it may be you all. Okay, because I'm telling people I can't hear. I had to close and come back. Okay, so y'all can hear. Yeah, y'all probably got too many things open in your browser. That's what it is. You doing this and you doing something else. You know what I mean? You're on those sites that you shouldn't be on. Using your credit card, looking at that live cam feed. I don't think you can look at a live cam feed and listen to YouTube at the same time. It's probably going to mess up, your sound settings. So, yeah, you have to tell Spicy or Portia. You'll see it later. But anyway, I'm playing with you. So, again, that idea there, man, the idea that, like I said, just because we have this strong left brain leaning and inkling and urging doesn't mean that it's also not effeminate, because effeminization is a war tactic, and I mean, people have to see that by now, yeah, you just got to see it by now. It's at this point, certain conversations we just can't keep circling back on. It's just so unproductive. It's so unproductive to constantly keep regurgitating certain things, and what's sad, through that regurgitating, we're creating new false heroes. We're creating new people. I had put a comment up like that, and usually I don't talk like that. Usually I stay out of certain things, but last strong, people kept asking me about this Roland Martin interview. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. I'm not going to say who was in the interview, but I'm sure you know who it was. And like a lot of people who I know who maybe are not so much into the studies were like, yeah, man, what do you think about that, man? That was deep. That was deep. And it was starting to get a little irritating because, you know, one of the things I was saying is like, it's deep if you don't study anything. If you know, if you don't study or know anything, you won't know when you're listening to someone who's a regurgitating thief. You know, or if you don't have any warrior spirit in you, you won't know when you're sitting here listening to a sucker. Like you could look at how a person carries themselves and learn a lot about their spirit. Just like sometimes women, I don't even know if sometimes, I'm not a woman, I would assume all the time, but who knows, a woman could set me straight on it. I know women tend to look at the way men walk, and I've heard women a lot of times give these really almost complex, you know, synopsis. Okay, he's saying I'm going out again. I don't think I'm going out, y'all. I think it's on your end because yeah, the sound is cool on my end. I suspect maybe YouTube is you know, doing something. Maybe the reptilians have finally taken over, and David Icke was correct all this time, and Credo Mutua. But so yeah, you know, a lot of people were asking questions about that, and I just had to, you know, I said something, you know, in a post, and I just said, I don't remember what I said exactly, but I said something to the effect that, you know, Roland Martin is a soft target. So when you see someone go up against him, if you don't study anything, you don't know anything, then you sitting here, you're thinking that you just saw something deep. You know, you're sitting here thinking that you're watching someone deep, and you may not realize that they're just stating the obvious. And thank you everyone for letting me know. Yeah, I think it's just you guys who are going in and out. Like I said, if you could just close the live cam. I know you paid your money for the full hour, but maybe she'll. Let me stop. But but I'm sorry. Let me drink some more water so I can sober up and act my age. Okay. Now I'm acting my age again. This is me acting my age. So, yeah, like I was just saying, you know, a lot of times through people's lack of awareness, they create heroes where there really is no heroes. And like I said, you can look at a person and see a sucker, man. Like, you know, at some point we have to learn to tap back into our intuition. We've lost so much of that. You know, Brother Justin put a post on Twitter yesterday. I don't know, man. Yesterday or the day before, I'm not sure. Sometimes like I see him a little late because I don't always have the app open. And he was basically saying something to the effect that, or asking, he was saying that why is it whenever he looks up spiritual information that I talk about, like he Googles it, the information that he gets is very one-dimensional, and it seems like I'm the only one going beyond, you know, 1 or 2 dimensional information, right? And I'm not saying that to big myself up, anything like that. I'm just repeating, you know, what he said in that sense. And I didn't respond to it. Just was probably listening. I didn't forget I was going to respond, but I was also I didn't my first guttural response I didn't want to say, but I'll say it here because it's different, you know. But people want garbage, man. That's why people want garbage. They want whack leaders, you know, who don't live by what they say they live by, you know, because then it doesn't highlight their own sloppiness, you know, and they want information that is one-dimensional, that only confirms the stupidity that they think they already know. You see, that's what they want. So I'm not like that. You know, I'm not here to confirm anything. I'm not trying to be something for someone else. And like I've said before, consciousness didn't make me cool. I was cool already. So I don't need this to get friends or to find women I can relate to or whatever the thing is, or just to get someone to finally listen to me. You know, so a lot of times those agendas are present. And then on top of that, Another reason, Justin, people are not as smart as a lot of times we think they are. There's a lot of low IQ people out here. Yeah, dumb. There's a lot of dummies out here. Low IQ, dummies. So you put something in front of them, you start stating the obvious, people get real hyped up and excited. I had a brother speak to me a couple of days ago, man. He was inviting me out to a lecture, and I was like, yeah, I'll try to see if I can come, you know, if I have a little bit of time. But he was like, yeah, man, this brother, he's breaking down the Bible, and he's showing that, man, that blacks, we was all up in that thing. Now, this is a dude who's been in consciousness for like, literally for like 40 years. Like 40 years. You know, and I'm saying been in consciousness for 40, not that he's 40 years old. He's been in this for 40 years. And he's running this down to me like, yeah, man, he's going through the Bible and showing, you know, man, we all up in that thing. I'm like, seriously? In 2017? Like, we still doing that? You know, I didn't say that, you know, because I'm not going to try to discourage. You know, I don't want to be the sour lemon. But in the back of my mind, I'm good on that, man. You know, I don't need to prove anything in the Bible. Like, aren't we past that discussion at this point? We still proving Bible. We still trying to show that black people was in the Bible. You see that? So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes people come with some real obvious information, and oftentimes it's regurgitated because, again, we tend not to be a people of history. So we don't go back and really look at our elder warrior scholars, you know, and look at some of the works that they've laid down. We don't honor it. We don't look at people like Amos Wilson. Read everything Amos Wilson wrote. Everything, you know, everything. You know, you want to know what book I suggest? All of them. You know, but we don't do that. You know, and there's so many others, man. Jacob Carruthers, George Jackson. You know, I mean, I don't want to go through the whole list. Asa Hilliard. You know, shoot, there's too many to really even mention. But we don't look at those, right? So what happens as a result, somebody comes along who steals that information, and we got to say steal because they're not crediting them, but they come along and they steal the information, and because you don't study anything, you thinking this person is the second coming, but they really a sucker. They're really a sucker for being a thief. And then they start doing things that show that they're a sucker. You know, they start getting caught in situations that show this person is just they're a mark, they're a sucker. And the sucker in you, because you don't want to stand up and be a warrior, still lets that stuff ride. You know what I mean? So, like I said, people will come to me like, yeah, man, what do you think? I don't think nothing of it. You know what I mean? I know a sucker when I know some of these people sitting up on these podiums talking all that tough talk. If they went to high school with me, they wouldn't be able to come to school with nothing new. Let me just put it that way. They'd be going home barefoot with no jacket. All right, so all that tough talk and yelling in the camera and we banging on the beast and da-da-da and come see me outside, just stop it. You know, are you a scholar? Are you a thug? And the truth is you ain't none of that. You know, so I'm just saying, I had put up a post to that, and I'm not mentioning any names, but, you know, I don't have a lot of low IQ listeners. So I know y'all know who I'm talking about. But straight up clown, man. Straight clown. Straight sucker, man. It doesn't want anything for black people. Nothing except for their money. Give me your dough and come with your skirt up in the air. That's it. He's a preacher. He's a preacher. A worthless preacher. And people don't want to speak on it because as soon as you start talking about stuff like that, people will say, oh, see, we always tearing our own down. That's not tearing down. You know, you got to understand the history, man. Some of our greatest organizations were infiltrated by people with melanoid skin. So when you see a cancer come into your organization or your movement or your community, you got to cut that goddamn thing out. You don't look at it and say, well, you know, man, we always tearing each other down, you know, or so-and-so is a foul person, but they be saying some true stuff. Well, goddamn it, so does the devil. What the hell is wrong with you? Like, you don't know this trick by now? I'm mixing a little bit of truth with a whole lot of deceit. You haven't figured that one out. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we're kind of really regurgitating, going over and over and over certain things that we should have already have gotten past at this point. And these are the things that keep us caught in the cycles of undevelopment. We want to keep talking about the same thing all the time. We're going to be doing lectures on the Bible. No more lectures on the Bible. No more. Come on, man. We don't need that anymore. And I know that there's that rationale. Well, what about the people still in church? The people still in church want to be in church. Because there's been too much information put out at this point. You know what I mean? When you have now the idea of a hotepper, you know, that's a it's going to be a household name soon, but it's a common parody. It's a common term that's used. You see that on large media outlets. So even the term hotep, which is really, it's a disgrace, because that term deserves a whole lot more respect than that. You see what I mean? But when it gets to the point where you now become a parody and you now become a point of blasphemy, then that means people know about this stuff now. This stuff isn't secret anymore. You know, it's how did they secretly build the pyramids? Dr. Ben taught how they built the pyramids over 30 years ago. It's, you know, this is not new information. But again, if I'm talking to people who are not a people of history and are only focusing on or functioning through left brain reality, then everything is very linear. See, the right brain feminine is always going to kind of have a cyclical spiral where it takes what it has, it takes its gems and carries it forward. You know, that's why you have mothers be like, "You'll always be my baby," no matter what happens, because she's carrying that spirit forward. The masculine energy is functioning along that linear line where after it happens, it's done, it's behind, I'm gone, I'm moving to the next thing. So as a result, sometimes we might be in consciousness for 3 or 4 years, but never read a book by Carter G. Woodson. You know, never read Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. Any of the volumes, you know, by Jawanza Kunjufu. You know, or Raising Black Boys by Jawanza Kunjufu. You know, you read some of the stuff, you know, or from yesterday past, you start to realize, wait a minute, this somebody's stealing some of this stuff. This is stuff that's been, you know, been taught since the 70s. This is not, you know, some new innovative stuff that a person may be talking about. You know, it's just somebody stealing here. But because you may not be, again, a people of history, and that respect isn't there for the elders, you don't know that those things have already been shared, and it's time for us to move beyond that point, you know, and we move beyond it by applying what has been shared. You see what I'm saying? Not just keep going back over and over and over, because essentially you're talking to groups of misinformed people who are emotionally weak. You see what I mean? So misinformed people who are emotionally weak are always going to fall for the phonies. They're always going to fall for the frauds because of what they're really looking for, and the fact that they're too lazy to properly inform themselves. So they learn everything they know through YouTube videos. So that's very left brain, right? I know you might feel like that was a long side, but it was a needed side. You know, and like I said, I'm only really even just really explaining. You know, like I said, I put up some posts recently, and I was just like, enough is enough, man. I've been nice about this. You know, like I said, I have a rule. I don't talk about my people in public, even if they really ain't my people. But, you know, sometimes when I see certain things or people ask me certain questions, I want to cut that person off who asked me. It's like, man, don't bring that stupidness to me. You know, like, you don't realize we're so far beyond that, or you can't see a sucker when you see one. You can't see a clown when you see one. This is not a warrior. This is not a leader. This is just a talker. This is a talking head. You know what I mean? You can't tell the difference between a talking head and someone who's actually putting the work in. And then as a result, sometimes, I'll give you something real quick before we move on. Brother Charles was talking to me about that not long ago, and he was saying, you know, I was wondering how you were keeping up the pace with doing that, you know, the Monday through Friday community segments. He was like, it was so much information. And he was like, you know, because when I stopped doing it, he thought I stopped doing it because I was tired. And I said, no, that's not, I could do that for years. That's not a problem. But, and the teaching, the work is never really tiring. If any of you have ever worked in education, you probably know what I'm talking about, or even worked at a daycare or a summer camp. You notice working with the children is not tiring. I mean, it's tired. It's fatiguing to a degree because, especially if you got a bunch of knucklehead children, because you're giving your all and you're outpouring everything. So by the time 3, 4 o'clock come, you're ready to just lay out and go into a coma. But the most tiring aspect of it is dealing with the parental ignorance. That's the parts that, or the administrative ignorance. That's the part when you're working in public institutions like schools and stuff that makes you want to quit. The children you can get through, you can figure the youth out. It's the administration and more so, it's the parents. So it's the same thing when you're dealing with conscious information. This part is easy. It's not tiring. The tiring aspect is dealing with the stupidity and the ignorance, because it's emotionally tiring. It's discouraging. So when I have people, again, you've been in this for 40 years, and you coming up to me, you talking about, yeah, man, he breaking down the Bible. A little part of me cries inside, because then I say, well, who the hell have I been talking to all this time? All this information and all these steps I've been given, I thought we were walking this altar and we were leading somewhere, and you still back there? So wait a minute. That's when you get to the top of the steps, you think your crew is with you, and you turn around. It's almost like when Jesus went up on the mountain, and he was transfigured. We're talking about mythology, all right? So be cool. And he was transfigured, and he came back down, and the disciples were asleep, and he went off on them. It's kind of like that. It's like, man, y'all supposed to be down here praying while I was up there transfiguring myself, and I come down and y'all knocked out. So it's kind of the same thing, man. You running and you doing the work and you putting it in, and then you turn around and people are still, falling for the okie doke in a real way. So kind of like what Brother Justin said when he asked me that question, why is it everything, whenever you teach something and I look for more, information, it's so one-dimensional, man, because people are asleep. They want to be asleep, and they want clowns to confirm their slumber. So the thing is, at this point, you have to get to a place where you process the good information that's being given to you, and then you disperse that. You become, the next level of junior teacher or Jegna or whatever it is. Because for the most part, the things that are going to excite the masses, if they excite someone who's consciously aware, something's probably wrong. Something's probably wrong. Because if you've been studying for 3, 5, 10 years, you've been putting in that work to really develop yourself and to go beyond the real base levels of existence, where you're just waking up, going to sleep, going to work, going to parties, going on vacation, whatever. But, you're living a life beyond the durational and mundane, and something happens in the greater society or the larger society where the masses who do none of that are completely enthralled and excited about it. If you're being compelled to also be excited about the same thing, something is probably off. I mentioned this with, I think I did, with the 444 CD, Jay-Z's thing. I'm not speaking about against Jay-Z, anything like that. But if you need Jay-Z to rap or to wake you up into consciousness, something is seriously wrong. Seriously wrong. And because the things that he's talking about, we've been giving away for free for over 40, 50 years now. So if you supposedly have been in this community and studying these things, why are you so impressed now like this is new information? Unless you ain't been listening. You ain't really been studying. You ain't really been listening. So that's the fatiguing part. When you turn around and you look at that and you say, man, really? Seriously? Like this is who I've been talking to all this time? This level of investment, or this level of intellect, or I have to even say maybe this level of stupidity. And the reason I can say stupidity, because again, stupidity is knowing better but not doing better. Okay, so it's not like when you're dumb. When you're dumb, you just don't know. So your excuse is, I ain't know. And it can, to a degree, of course, it can be an acceptable excuse, but when you're stupid, it's just you knew better, but you chose to do something else. You know, so stupidity is a little something different. I'm gonna give you an example, which I wasn't gonna do. I saw a review on Grasping the Root of Divine Power by someone by the name of Miss Independent, where she gave the book 2 stars, right? No big deal. I mean, you can give it 5 stars, 2 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, whatever, right? But I read the review because feedback is very important. That's a part of becoming a greater and better developed person, man. You got to be open to feedback. You got to, it's important. So I read it. I said, okay, well, what's the issue? And Miss Independent, and I'm sure some of y'all probably already like, well, that name already tells me I'm talking to what I'm talking to. But anyway, 2 stars. I'm gonna read it. I wasn't gonna read it, but I just pulled it up just now for S and giggles. And the title was Annoying Conscious Woke Word Use and Some Inaccuracies, Not Full Instructions to Throw Obi. That was the title, right? And then I'm going to read what she says. She said, there is some inaccurate information and also translations of the African words, such as when you are calling and reciting lineage, it is not just your ancestors, but your spiritual initiatory godparents you are listing. Therefore, the author has listed mother twice when one is not your bloodline parent. However, it was good to have the recitations in one place. It also does not give the complete instructions for pouring libations or throwing obi. The author tries to say this is not from a neo-colonial invention, but actually, yes, it is. It is not 100% traditional, and as they are admittedly Pan-African or African, they use voodoo veve for different archetypical orisha. They focus only on the 7 African powers they call orisha, but these are not orisha. They are the dead spirit guides. They say weird stuff like Bob Marley is the reincarnation of Oshun and use non-tradition Ewe plant or herb list, all North American, not even tropical. It says to burn cedar for home tranquility. This is a big no-no as it's sacred to Chango, Chango. And insulting are just some of the other faults. The writing style is like a bad blog post on Angel Fire from the early 2000s. The word choice is hella annoying. like using community, and she spelled it KHEM-UNITY, and community, COME-UNITY, for community, for example, could really do without understand, overstand, respect, woman, WOMBYN, you and I verse, ha 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 ha. However, I also learned some more African words. Right? So I know I probably shouldn't be laughing, right? But I mean, and I'm going to speak about that in a minute. You only can reconcile through love, you see, and love is a transference of consciousness. So there has to be, you have to be able to put yourself in someone else's headspace in order to properly connect with them and in order to properly love them. So I'm laughing as if I wrote it. I'm not laughing as Chief Yuya, the author, who, someone just, insulted. But so you gotta look at both sides of everything, right? Now, grammatically, you know me. I'm gonna get on that grammar. The grammar was horrible. I didn't really some of the stuff couldn't really understand. But see, this is an example of just stupidity. Well, maybe some ignorance, stupidity, some arrogance mixed in, and obviously Miss Independent, You can already tell. As soon as I see that name, I know I'm dealing with an idiot. I'm gonna keep it real. Now I know that people gonna say you shouldn't be calling. See, you name calling. You name calling. All right. I just got 4 paragraphs of insults hurled at me in my work. I'm allowed to now respond how I want to respond. You know, that's a slick thing people like to do, especially with black men. We're supposed to take all forms of abuse and just say, all right, and walk away. That's the only advice we're ever given as black men. Hey, man, just walk away. So people can insult you and disrespect you every which way, but as soon as you respond in kind, now the attention goes to you. He name called it. Right. So it was just wrong. Like, this is so much. I don't even want to go through everything because there was so much that was off. You know, like saying that you're supposed to list your godparents when you do your libations. Not necessarily. It depends on what kind of Adura you're reciting. You know, that's not the case every single time. You know, this is somebody who was probably taught like that, and they were taught that because, see, it becomes dogmatic. It becomes the gospel truth. You have to do it this way. Listing that, you know, I use voodoo veve for different archetypical orisha. Yeah, but, you know, you got to look at the sentence before that. They are admittedly Pan-African. Then it says they use voodoo veve for different archetypical orisha. Well, wouldn't that be an example of Pan-Africanism? Pulling from different African cultures? They focus only on the 7 African powers they call Orisha, but these are not Orisha. They are dead spirit guides. I mean, do I even have to go into that one? So Oya is not an Orisha, because I'm just going to say the ones in the book. Yemonja is not an Orisha. Ogun is not an Orisha. Shango, which I spelled properly in the book, I also gave the variation spellings, but the fact that she spells it Chango, I already know what I'm dealing with here. You know, but Oshun is not an Orisha, right? Even though they said I say weird stuff like Bob Marley is the reincarnation of Oshun, right? So saying something like that, they say Bob Marley is the reincarnation of Oshun, and it's one of the reincarnation. I listed other people as well. I think I also listed Erykah Badu as well. But here's the thing, right? People don't read. They don't understand what they read. This is a low IQ person. You could tell by the way they type this. Low IQ. And then the idea that the word choice is hella annoying, like using community and community for community. So because you strengthen certain ideas and certain values through creative word choicing, that becomes annoying. Like, this person really sounds like they're like 6 years old. Now, I gotta say, and that might be an insult to a 6-year-old, but they're like 6 years old. That's what this person comes off as, you know. So I'm just giving an example of, like, and again, I'm laughing. I don't really care anything about this review or this person. It doesn't, you know. This is on Amazon, and I don't live on Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when Amazon first came out, so I existed longer than Amazon. You know, so it doesn't define me. It doesn't define the work or anything like that. It's no big deal, you know. But it's just an example. Like, when I read it, because I had my mind open. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me see what I need to tighten up here. Read it, and I'm like, this is more stupidity. This is what I'm talking about. Just stupidity. Annoying, conscious, woke word use. Even that. Annoying, conscious, woke word use. You know, but see, that's the problem. Sometimes people are given a voice who shouldn't have a voice, and sadly, they can become cancerous and destructive to someone who really is doing something, you know. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Some people need to be silenced. They need to just shut the hell up, because what they're bringing is poison. They're bringing poison to the community. They're ignorant. They have no space to speak. You know, I'll give you a great example, right? Before I even go on to the next point. I know we traveling on this one. I'm gonna go to the slides, and this is for people who are watching via YouTube. Okay, here we go. Here's a slide right here. Right? That I put up. And the slide says Chief Yuya is not allowed to speak to the elders without his auntie to the left of him being present. There is balance. You just have to look for it. The Anu African Initiative is strong. Now, you know, you guys know a lot of times I don't give or show images of what I do over in the continent, but I just got the inkling, you know, the feeling just to do it. So I shared this particular image, and this is actually in what we call the longhouse. This is the chief's longhouse, or sometimes we call it the story building, because it's 2 stories. And if anyone can see the image right now, the elder sitting to the right of me is the chief of that particular village, and the elder sitting to the left of me is my auntie. Okay, and she is what we call my guardian. Okay, so in that sense, the guardian is the person, well, who looks out for you, make sure you're okay. But more importantly, in terms of my relations in that particular region on the continent, she is my liaison to the elders. And I can't really speak. Like, if I came to the elders and said, hey, I need to talk to you about so and so, they would give me a time to come back, but I have to bring my auntie. I can't, Big Chief Yuya and all, and where's auntie? I'm not gonna say her name, but where's auntie? So and she speaks for me most often, especially if I'm away or I have something to do. She speaks in my place. That's the authority that she has. Or if she doesn't want me to do something, she'll say, no, you can't do that. If I want to do a certain thing, or maybe want to put up a building somewhere or something, and she doesn't think the idea is good, no, that's that. So you see, you're dealing with real elders here, and of course, as you could probably tell by the image, I'm on the continent. I can't come in, no matter how slick I am with my words, and big and strong and powerful, and I can come in and I can do this and I can do that. I'm saying big and strong in terms of my ability to get things done, not physically, but being there, I can come out and do that. Man, sit your butt down. All right, sit your behind down. Where's auntie? You see, because you're not qualified yet to sit in this space. These are elders. You're not qualified. Not only are these elders, but and you're not old enough, but you ain't down. You unborn here. You're not down. As much as we love you, and this is I'm actually a member of this village. This is my home. One of my homes is in this particular village. Even regardless of all that, man, without auntie, you keep your mouth shut. Unless something is directed to you, and it's all love. In fact, the picture that you're seeing, Chief asked me to take. He was like, "Come on, he loves taking pictures with me." He's like, "Come on, let's take a picture, take a picture." This is my man, and he told me I looked like I ate a goat before I came there. He said, "Why are you so big? Why are you so big, Baba? Baba, why are you so big? You look like you ate the goat." All right, man. I'm a hybrid, man. They raised us over here for work. But in any event, so it's just an example of, like I said, sometimes people have a voice that shouldn't have a voice. So even me, in certain environments, I'm not allowed to have a voice. It doesn't matter how many books I've read or what I'm doing back in the States and all that type of stuff like that. I'm just not qualified to do whatever I just feel like I want to do. You see what I'm saying? And you speak about the balance between male and female, right? That's kind of where I said in that posting, there is balance. You just have to look for it. So who is auntie, who has more stain than I do? Auntie has way more stain than I do, and I have to bow to her. Whatever she says, go down. Sometimes auntie, she might bring me a youth and say, "Hey, this is so and so. Give them work in one of your buildings." Auntie, I don't need anybody to come sweep up the buildings. I'm good. And she just look at me. "Oh, you will do it." She'll just smile and laugh and clap her hands. "Oh, you'll do it." That's that. That's that. So, the balance is important, man, when you really have that sense of protocol and etiquette and decorum, and most importantly, when there's a sense of love that's shared. Like I said, it's the transitioning of the consciousness and that sense, and that love is transcending, because it's just like one of the things, I'm not going to really speak about my people in public like that, man, because even if the dude is a sucker, I'm not trying to knock the man's legs from under him if he's got a family to feed, or heck, he might have himself to feed. I'm not going to knock it. If I see him in private, I'm like, hey, look, man, why don't you stop, man? Let me show you another way to make some money, man, because you're doing it in a way that's harmful to our people. Let me show you how to come over here and get some paper like this, man. Let's do some other things, But sometimes we so viciously we try to destroy and end things that people are doing. And we have no real replacement. So after you finish destroying someone's movement or whatever, then what are you going to give the people? Nothing. You're just being destructive. And certain tools shouldn't be in the hands of certain people. Just like when I come to the elders, certain tools are not in my hand. I'm not allowed to do certain things. You see what I'm saying? I'm not allowed to just come up to the longhouse and, hey, I call him Papa. Hey, Papa, man, I need to rap. Papa look at me like, you lost your mind? I know how he would. He would look at me like, man, you better get on back down them steps. So it's that really valuable system of checks and balances that are necessary. And that's a part of coming with your whole mind, like I spoke about earlier. Where you are not just coming from one leaning. You're not just coming from your left brain cognition. You're not just coming from your right brain cognition, but you're coming with your whole mind. And a lot of times in our work, we don't do that. We don't learn to come with our whole mind. Now, I'm gonna give you another example, right? Here's another image that I shared. The caption on this one is fast times in Nigeria with the brothers. If you're seeing it on YouTube, if you're not, then don't worry about it. Just listen. Fast times in Nigeria with the brothers. We must create bridges of transition for the family here and abroad. Our survival depends on the frequency and efficiency in which we can share information with one another. The Our New African Initiative is real. Yeah, for those of you who thought it was a myth. So in that particular image, the idea is being shared, and I actually think I shared that image once when we had our Facebook group before I shut it down. There was a situation that happened in the village. There was some stuff going on. Long story short, the young brother in the front on that picture was having an issue with a female relative who was being taken advantage of. And the problem there is that sometimes people allow things to happen because of a very twisted sense of etiquette. So certain things will be allowed to transpire, and me, I'm like, man, we need to deal with that, man. Let's go kick his front door in. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, no, Baba, no, that's no good. That is not fine. We can't do that. That's not fine. Oh man, so there's a situation, and the brothers reached out, and we had to go way into the bush, and now we're talking about the hierarchy in a sense, like certain things you can't do. Like he couldn't go to this brother because he's older. He's a school teacher. This particular guy, I don't know if I call him a brother. And essentially he was messing with, he got one of his students pregnant, a young underage girl who's related to the brother. And, because he knows him as teacher, there's that level of respect there. And I'm like, nah, he lost that. That's done. He lost that. So I had to go through the bush. We rolled out on we rolled out there. And I had to have a different kind of exchange with teacher, or who really, he's headmaster. He's the headmaster there in that school. So I had to have a different kind of conversation with the headmaster. So I was able to have that kind of conversation with Headmaster because we're in a similar age group. You see, so again, the respect there. I couldn't just jump up if I wasn't in a similar age group. I wouldn't have been able to just jump up and be like, "Hey, boom, 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 boom," or take it to the level that I took it to, right? So again, as an example there, and of course, and this is when we came back into the city after after mission accomplished, and it was really walking through the bush in the middle of the night because that's what it was, in the middle of the night, going deep back into the bush and banging on a door and letting someone know you could get it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that respect and that hierarchy is important, and being able to, that's the intrapersonal intelligence, so not shutting down, not being fearful, but knowing what needs to be done. Is a mission to be accomplished regardless. And when we talk about putting in work, man, these are the things that I'm talking about that, and again, I want to make it clear, I'm not bragging on anything. I'm not saying I'm any more of something than another person is, because there's plenty of us out here. But, sometimes we got to learn to kind of look with our whole mind and try to really picture if what a person is saying is aligning with their core and base actions. If you call yourself a warrior, if you look in that image, I don't know if you see it, but you're going to see some chipped up knuckles. There's a reason for that. If you call yourself a warrior, are you willing to go in the bush in the middle of the night, and walk 4 miles into the bush and, get it popping, and then come back to, and then put your chief beads back on and then come back, into town and eat some pounded fufu and keep it moving, so it's just sometimes, it's important for us as a people to kind of know how to relegate our perception of the standard that's necessary using our own mind. And like I said, I'm being told there's no sound by Brother Achille again. All right. So y'all let me know there's no sound. I think there is sound, but you let me know if there's no sound, because I'm picking up sound on my end. All right. Sounds good for low. All right. Well, if it's good enough for Polo, it's good enough for the rest of us. All right. So yeah, Achille, I think it's the same issue that you had previously. All right. But yeah, so I know that felt like a long tangentization, but like I said, sometimes you got to go for the ride and hear the things that are necessary to hear. But one of the things I thought about in terms of that development, or that coming into full being, truly being who and what you now. Okay, Achille. Yeah, I think that might have been on your end, my brother. YouTube may just be acting up. Or maybe, the problem is that I'm showing images from the continent, and last time I showed images from or attempted to show what completely messed up, broke down everything like that. So I told myself then, that was some years ago, that I would not show images from the continent again. But something told me that I should. So maybe that's why it's messing up. Maybe I need to meditate on that again and maybe keep some certain images secret / sacred. But anyway, so there's a certain precept in Buddhism that I thought about earlier today when I was thinking about this segment, that I just wanted to kind of give idea to and really show how it links into it links into what we're talking about in terms of undevelopment. And it's the idea, and again, I'm taking you to, I'm trying to, what we're speaking about, and that's why I brought up the example of the Roland Martin garbage, and some of the things that we take as gospel without much examination. And maybe sometimes we may feel guilty about examining, like, certain people or certain elders. Sometimes we may feel that they're beyond scrutiny, but they're not. I'm not beyond scrutiny. That's why I've said before, if hey, if you find out something that I've done foul, throw all this out. Everything that you may have thought was good or whatever, it wasn't good, because it's laced with the poison of a poor character. So if you find out, months, years, days later, verified, not this crap like this clown posted on Amazon, but you find out that, hey man, Chief is this, or he's doing that, or I don't know. I'm not going to speak anything into existence, but whatever it may be, I'm not beyond scrutiny, and I'm certainly not beyond criticism, you see, and nor are our elders. They're not beyond scrutiny and criticism. And a lot of times, even though we may divest ourselves from different stronghold and formalized religious teachings, a lot of times what we end up doing is reinvesting ourselves into conscious dogma. You see, without really taking the time to learn, not really taking the time to understand and break things down, so that becomes really just a reincarnation of our previous bondage. So we now use words like love and consciousness and energy and ancestors and all in all, and things like that, and we in cosmic and whatever, and those become now our overlord or our overhanging concepts and terms that we utilize to still keep ourselves weak. To keep ourselves weak. And Shakyamuni, I don't know if any of you too familiar. I never really got into it. Maybe I'll teach at some point. I may have. I don't know if I've ever done a show on Buddhism. I feel like I did, but maybe not. I don't know. I have to search the archives, but now you got me I'm thinking about it. But anyway, so there's an idea, when you're studying Shakyamuni, and there's an idea that when you encounter a teacher, or you encounter a theory or a doctrine or even an ideology, that you don't want to bound yourself to the idolizing of that particular teaching, right? Because all teachings are really all systems, and they're really just pathways. All they are really are a way of guiding you to where you need to be, but they're not necessarily the absolutism of what that truth is supposed to be. Okay, so in that sense, we're saying, like, even if whether you look at Orisha, or you look at Kemetic studies, or you just look at energy studies, or you want to learn about nature and things like that, none of those should necessarily be taught and given to you as the end all be all, like they are the absolute solution or they are the absolute truth, but rather they are a means to an end. And the truth is, the end for just a moment is an individualized, and then after it's individualized, the moment it becomes very universal. So there's a moment when we all have to go through a very unique and individualized door in order to go through, or in order to go back into where we all are. You see, so it's like we all have a different entrance or a different doorway into unity in that sense. So when you teach one way as if it's a representation of the absolutism of truth, which doesn't really exist, because again, I've taught you before that truth is such a dynamic thing. The truth is always changing, so no one can write something in a book and say, well, this is what it is and it's always going to be. It's not going to rock out. You're not going to be able to rock out like that. Okay, so even, of course, that goes for me. That goes for our new teachings and the our new spiritual system. I've never presented it, and I deliberately don't present it as any type of religion or any type of absolute way of doing things. If you listen to like a lot of the early segments, I used to talk about that a lot. If you and mainly because I was talking about Orisha so much, I didn't want it to seem like this isn't we're talking about the end all be all. You got to get initiated and this and that. No, and I would always say, if crystals do it for you, do it with crystals. If water magic does it for you, if meditation does it for you, if working out does it for you. I have a good friend of mine who's a Christian elder. He's a minister, but he's been ordained as an elder. And he said that the other day. He sent me like a WhatsApp, and he was like, yo, I still, I'm still into Christ and stuff like that. But he said, He said, I think my new religion is working out. And he was not joking. He said, I'm dead serious. My new religion is going to be working out. Like I'm seeing the change, because he's been working out for like a year now. He's like, man, it's what it's been able to do for me and my perspective and the type of energy that I'm now, the people I'm attracting into my life, and the way my whole life outlook has changed. He was like, my religion is working out now. And he's like, you're the only person I could tell. So whatever gets you there, that's really the key. So the idea with that precept, is what we call in Shakyamuni Buddhism, we call it the roar of the lion. Okay. And the roar of the lion, in this sense, it really speaks about, learning to, like we say, kind of like, don't confuse when you're pointing at the moon, don't confuse your finger for the moon. So pay attention to where you're actually going. Don't get caught up in the means. Or if you're trying to take a boat to an island, don't confuse the boat with the island. They're all a means to a particular end. And when you can get to that place and move beyond what we tend to cling to in terms of, we cling to our methods, we cling to our means, that's a sign of an undeveloped person. You see, because the means becomes the actual destination, not the actual change, not the evolution, not the life improvement, not the personal development, none of that stuff like that. But it's the means becomes the end all be all. So even like a lot of times when we speak about the movement through community work, right, and doing things and reclaiming our communities or building communities, sometimes the romantic notion of rebuilding a community becomes the actual destination. So you have a lot of events, or you have a lot of talking head clown fake warrior scholars where all they do is talk. They don't do any actual work. And if they do even a little tidbit of work, they got to film it. It's got to become a Facebook live event or Instagram live event, things like that. It has to become that. I was thinking about that the other night. I went out somewhere to get some food, and there was a guy in the parking lot. I was sitting, there was like some seating outside, so it was late at night. It was hot, but I wanted to soak up some air. So I was sitting outside and eating my dinner, and a guy walked by. There was a garbage can not far from me for the place, excuse me. And a guy walked by, and when he walked up, he grabbed a like a drink cup from the place, and he did it real smooth and quick. He grabbed it out of the garbage can, right? And then he went inside the place to get a refill on the drink. Right. And then he went and sat down on the bench. He had this big book bag, sat down on the bench and just drank his drink. And then I was sitting there because I was reading a book. So I was finished eating and I was just reading. And he then waited for a little while, then came over to the garbage can again and like checked one of the bags in there. As people were eating, he was seeing how much was in there. Right. So I went back on the line and I ordered like a whole bunch of food, and I came back out and I gave it to him, right? And when I gave it to him, like, cause he was in the cut, so I was actually trying to do it in the cut. I didn't make a big production out of it. I was trying to do it in the cut. He was sitting on the bench, so I walked over there and I just like swiftly I put the bag on the bench. I was like, hey man, good evening. And he was like, oh, thank you so much, thank you, bro. And I came back, I walked away, but then I came back and I was like, hey, by the way, what's your name, man? And he told me his name. I wonder what country he was from. He had a foreign accent, but he told me his name, and then I told him my name. I said, okay, if I see you again, now we know each other's names, so I'll greet you by your name or whatever. And when I was walking to my vehicle, there was these two young ladies there. And they were like, oh, we saw what you just did. That was so kind. It was like, that's the kind of stuff that people need to post on social media, like to show that there are good people in the world and this and that. And, that's kind of the mentality. Like if we do something, it has to become a public event, and I thought about it. I was like, well, nah, I wouldn't really want to. And I told him, I said, well, that would probably be embarrassing to him. You know, that could be me or you next year, you know, in a situation like that where we're eating out of garbage cans. And, you know, you think about it now. Would you want somebody just jumping in your face with a camera and then saying, like, what's your name, and putting it out into the world like that? If you have family and stuff that you may not want to know what your situation is. So, you know, that I don't think, and I told her, I said, I wouldn't really feel comfortable with that, because I think that would be disgraceful and disrespectful to him. And they kind of, you know, like, okay, whatever. You know, like I was saying something crazy. It's all good. But, you know, so again, the sometimes we get caught up in the actual means and not really in the destination. If the destination is to provide something valuable to humanity, what means do you currently have right now to do it? You see, what means do you have to provide something of value to humanity right now in the moment? And sometimes we focus on, well, I got to get this, I got to get initiated, I got to get that. So the means become the actual destination and not at the actual work that you could do right there in the moment, right? So real easy example, right? All I had to do was go back in, which the place was air conditioned. I was sitting out in the heat. So I actually just stood back online in the air conditioning, soaking up more air conditioning. I spent maybe, I would think it was like $28, $29, something like that. Let's say almost $30, right? I didn't buy a drink because he already did that little slick drink thing. So I was like, well, he's good on the drink. But for the cost of, you know, just a half a tank of gas, you know, he's good for a day or two. You know what I mean? Or he could see, maybe sell the food, whatever. But, you know, he's good. So the means were already there present. Now, what that may mean, let's say if I didn't really have it, let's say if I was kind of strapped for dough. So that may mean, okay, well, maybe, you know, for a strong or two, I won't drive anywhere. I'll walk, or maybe I'll fast for a day or two and cut back. You know, maybe I'll do something there and to kind of make up for that, if that was the case. But a lot of times we focus more on needing certain tools and things like that. And sometimes you might be in a position like the image that I showed you on the continent. I don't have that many tools. I got one tool, Auntie. You know, I can't come in there and start breaking down words and, you know, well, you know, back in America, you know, I'm kind of known for being deep. Here, let me show you something. I ain't got none of that. I ain't got none of it. It's just Big Baba. Baba is so big. Look at Baba. Don't, you know, I come to sit down, they stack 2 plastic chairs. You know what I mean? try to play me out, stuff like that. No, put another one. But, you know, so I'm just saying, a lot of times, man, we are missing the moon. We're mistaking the moon for our finger. You know, we're mistaking the island for the boat that we're sailing on. And it's because we're too addicted and we've begun to idolize our actual spiritual systems, which are a means to get to where we want to go, a means to get to where we want to be. You see what I'm saying? So the idea there is that, you know, if ultimately where we want to be is community building, we want to connect with people, we want to, and the reason, like, I went back, I shook his hand, I said, hey, what's your name? You know, and he told me his name. Took a minute to pronounce it because I kept saying it wrong. So that was our little moment. We got to connect because I kept saying, I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to say his name, but I kept saying it wrong. And then he was like, oh, just, you know what, just say this. So I was like, no, I want to say it the way you say it in your country, man. Don't give me the American version. But see, that was love. Not because I gave him something. That had nothing to do with it. That was easy. That was nothing, man. It's 30 beans, man. You know, I could find $30 on the ground in recyclable cans. You know what I'm saying? If I took a day and just said, hey man, I'm just gonna pick up pennies off the ground, bottles and cans, I come up with 30 beans. That's nothing. That's easy. You know, but it was the transference of the consciousness where I became him for a moment. You see, and when you're able, so when I first saw him grab the cup out of the garbage can, I said, look at that. That was slick. He was smooth. So I immediately put myself in his consciousness and I said, if I'm ever in that position, that's exactly how I'm gonna do it. You know, like I'm living where he's at. And then I'm thinking, well, heck, well, what if the last person had herpes? You know, I'm thinking all these different things. But, you know, and of course he went inside, got a straw. And so he probably thought about it. This person might have herpes. Let me get a straw. So, but the point I'm saying is that I'm becoming him for a moment. And I made a point not to stare at him or anything like that. You know, I'm reading my book, but I kept glancing up at him and I'm saying, man, it's really hot out here tonight, man. He's got that big book bag. What if I had to carry that big book bag and, you know, and walk out here in the heat and come all the way up here and try to get some food? And, you know, see, love is when you're transferring your consciousness into a different container. You see, and the only way you can bring reconciliation with your undeveloped parts, components, that's an interpersonal intelligence, or even with people outside of you, is by practicing your ability to transfer yourself into them for the moment. You see, so what happens when you're able to do that, then you remove the clinginess that you have on a perspective, the clinginess that you have on a side. So see, that's where conflict comes from. I'm right. No, I'm right. I'm going to win. No, I'm going to win. You're wrong. No, you're wrong. You see, so in that senses, we're clinging to a particular angle, right? So how do we reconcile it? Well, like we say, you got to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So what you do is you don't attach yourself to either side. So let's say if I'm on team green and team green has an issue with team yellow, right? And I want to reconcile the issue. Well, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to transfer my consciousness from team green over to team yellow for the moment. And then really get to a point when I can understand. Yeah, understand. I can understand. I know it's hella annoying, but I can understand team yellow's perspective and point of view. And then what I can do is then bring that information back to team green and say, hey, this is what they're thinking. This is their angle. This is what the actual issue is. And then when we can have a dialogue using language that moves us outside of how precious we consider our perspective to be, or how sacred we consider our doctrine or our ideology to be, then we can now unstick ourselves from the actual situation. You see, because that's what it really is being able to come and represent the highest production of the human mind, you know, and that highest production of that human mind is going to be a mind that can flow between different consciousness, between different seats. So just like with him, I looked at him and said, what was that? What if that was me? You know, and it's not like I don't say, what if that was me? Like, oh, what if I was, I don't know if he might not even been homeless. He might've just figured out a life hack. You know, I mean, I don't know, but and I'm only thinking about techniques. Would I do it that way? You know, would I do it like this, or boom? Would I go to this particular restaurant, or would I go somewhere else, or would I go try to strike up a deal with the chefs, and when they throw the food out, whatever it is, But that's that transference of how would I do this thing? You see what I'm saying? And in that sense, then you become that person. So in becoming that person, I said, well, heck, I'm hungry. Now I just finished eating my dinner. I was fulfilled. And I said, I'm hungry. Because I'm him now. I'm becoming him. I'm taking on his spirit. So I went in and got some food because I was hungry. I was hungry. I want my dinner. You see, so it's that idea that moves us beyond the craziness of clinginess. And that's really when Shakyamuni is talking about, the preciousness of life. He's really speaking about how we can achieve the peace of life through our ability to detach ourselves from views, and really practicing that precept so we can start going into a deeper reality, which is really hard for people because, again, when you don't have strong intrapersonal intelligence, you cling to one part. So if your emotion says fear, or your emotion says hurt or pain or whatever, you become that all the time. You don't have a way to really detach from that side. And, it doesn't mean that you're not compassionate with your fear side, but you allow your fear side and your compassionate side to have a dialogue. You see, you transfer your consciousness even internally. You have to transfer. It's almost like when you're doing investments and you have what's called IRR, or internal rate of return, where there's certain things that you could do internally within an investment that will yield you, maybe not dividends, but will yield you a form of appreciation on the investment that's not external. So there's certain things you can do inside that can help you. So like even inside of your own body, there's certain things that you can do to alleviate some of your internal confusion, unbeknownst to everyone else. You see, unbeknownst to everyone else. There's certain things that you could do when you start learning how to transfer your consciousness. Like sometimes you got to transfer your consciousness into your finger. You got to put it into your ear. You got to put it into your genitals. You got to put it into your knees. And in doing that, you're having a conversation with each part, but you're gaining the compassion and the awareness that each part needs in order for you to understand something, in order for you to see something, you see. So in that sense, it becomes a very powerful tool in the right hands. You see what I'm saying? It becomes a very powerful tool, being able to transfer consciousness like that and be something, or like we say, Orisha is what? Seated consciousness or selected consciousness. That within itself is an act of love. Love ain't got nothing to do with, like I said, I bought him some food. Oh, that was a loving act. No, it wasn't. When I transferred my consciousness, that was a loving act. And when I transferred my consciousness and became him for a couple of minutes, I was hungry. So that's all that was. So I became him, but then I jumped back into me, into Chief Yuya, and said, okay, now, I understand what he's feeling. Let me go get some food. So it's the compassion, the transmission of feelings, the transmissions of emotions that were accurate in that sense, in that instance and in that sense right there. But the act of love had nothing to do with the warm, fuzzy feelings or coming over and shaking his hand and hey, and then joking, and nothing to do with anything. That was just being cordial, Buying the food was just an act of survival, because if we're all related, because we're all made up of mental matter, then his hunger becomes my hunger. So I need to survive. I need to eat. So I'm going back online again, get some more food, So it's just that connectedness there, which allows for certain things to happen afterwards. I might have jumped into his consciousness and felt, well, hell, he just finished raping somebody. So then it might have been a different act based on that. But that still would have been the act of love, the fact that I jumped into the consciousness. I was willing to do that. I was willing to be that, you see. So that's the idea there, Don't get caught up in your means. Yourself, your personality, your body, that's the means to the end. Just like your finger pointing at the moon, well, you're just using your finger to help guide you to see the moon. Or the boat going to the island, you're just using the boat to get to the island. Don't get caught up to the point where you identify with the particular means so much that you can't grab hold of the end. You see? And in order to grab hold of the end, it's going to have to be a moment where you can even transfer your consciousness from the boat to the island, where you could picture what it'd be like to be laying out on the sand, or, to be bathing underneath the waterfall, or whatever it is that you're looking for in that space. Or when you're looking at the moon, to be able to transfer your consciousness to the moon for a moment and go beyond the means. You see, now that is a hallmark and one of the highest productions of the human mind, is that ability of transference and what we call compassion in that sense. All right, that has been our Chief Speaks. All right, and I'm gonna say peace to y'all in the chat room, to you all in the chat room, Sister Diana, Anwar, Royal Honey Jaha, and Shaga Guru, and Brother Byron, of course, as always. I'm going to do a scan real quick. I wasn't going to, but I am going to, and just check for any comments. I'm not going to check so much for questions, but for comments. And I know the comments may be out of timing. Boom. Peace, Sister Nicole. Wait, where's the other Nicole? I only see one Nicole. All right, so Nicole don't get no props. All right, let's see here. Started storming. Just stormed, and only to find the segment already started. Sister Georgina. You got to set an alarm. You know, we're in different time zones. You know, she said it's 1734 over in sunny. It seems like it's always in Netherlands. You're always reporting that it's sunny and nice. Seems like you have good weather there. Georgina also says, Chief Yuya, why would people enjoy fermentation waste / rubbish as in BS? Do they consider trash as fertilizer? Okay, I'll answer this one. No, they don't, because they're not looking for fertilizer, because they're not looking to grow. You know, they enjoy, and fermentation. I wouldn't even give some of the garbage that people are pushing out there. I wouldn't even give it the value of fermentation, because most of it is it's stagnant information. It serves very little value, you know, and it's being given to you by people who are low character. You know, they've shown themselves to be low character, but people enjoy the dirt because they've become comfortable in the sickness. You know, for instance, there's certain places where it's totally acceptable to walk around every day with your face screwed up, you know, with a scowl on your face. But if you walked around every day with a smile on your face, some people would say, "What's wrong with you?" Or they would say, "You're crazy." So people have kind of become very, very adjusted and very comfortable with the cesspool. And in terms of information, again, you got to look at the numbers that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us, that 5% are going to be teaching and living the truth, 10% going to know the truth, but they're going to confuse 85% and keep them deaf, dumb, and blind with the truth that they know. So yeah, the majority and the masses of people, they want to stay deaf, dumb, and blind. It's just more comfortable. You know, being a poor righteous teacher or being in the know can be very irritating. It could be irritable to yourself. You know, it could be a very alienating experience. And when you start getting information that starts to offend what your historic personality tells you should be clinging to, then people run to it. You know, but when you have somebody who you can tell somewhere deep inside of your spirit is fake, it makes you comfortable, because you know you fake too. So their fakeness, now you connect to it. If you got somebody that's real and you're phony, you're gonna have no points of connection. A wolf, you know, like I said, that's why wolves are necessary in the environment. You know, even on when as a youth, you know, you're always gonna have those wolf people be on the block, and either you're gonna, as a young boy, for instance, either you're gonna man up or you're gonna go back inside. You're gonna feminize. You know, so they help to clean up some of the rubbish that shouldn't be present. Now, in our conscious collectives, we ain't got any wolves. We got a bunch of sheep in wolf's clothing, but we ain't got no wolves. You know, we don't have anyone really laying down protocol. Like, again, the example that I gave you with me and the elders, this protocol. I can't just do whatever I feel like doing, no matter how smart I may think I am, or how much money I got in my pocket, or, you know, how much I've done for the place where I live. And like, well, I did this, I put the, man, sit your own big ass down. That's what it's going to be, you know? So there's no protocol, and there's no valuing of said protocol. You know what I mean? I've had Papa go off on me before for something I ain't even do, you know, and hey man, you sit and take it. You know, that's just what it is. That's the protocol. So, but in the conscious collectives, that doesn't exist, man. And anyone can take back doors in. They can jump up, you know, and just say I'm this, and then start talking. And again, if you're not a person of history, then they could regurgitate things, and you wouldn't even know where they're getting it from. Like the information that I teach, a lot of people steal it. I see it all the time on the internet. You know, like word for word. Like I'll do a segment, and literally 3 days later, that next thing will be, and they just follow me like 3 days behind me, always, and without sanctioning. You know, it's not like I'm saying, yeah, go ahead, take the information, run with it. You know, they just taking it. You know, so, but the thing is, if you're a real person, it's not going to register with you. You may say, yeah, they're saying a lot of things that make sense, but I don't feel you. You know, I ain't feeling you. And we've lost that. Like, we've lost the importance on feeling people, not just connecting with the logical left brain, also connecting with the right brain, with the abstract, with the feminine, because the feminine is going to feel the vibes. And then you have the subconscious in there as well. And the subconscious is going to let you know if you're transferring emotional, what's really sitting in front of you. You got your pineal, which is going to show you the real underlying reality. But people are not coming to the table with all those minds. They're coming with one. Somebody has a bunch of information, they ignore everything else. And a person with a bunch of information immediately becomes a leader. That doesn't even make sense. Just because you know something doesn't mean that you know how to lead. It's different qualities that are necessary. A lot of times, in order to be a good leader, you need a healthy balance of courage and ignorance. You need to be a little ignorant to be a good leader, because your ignorant causes you to push beyond what people said that you couldn't do, or what you didn't have present, what you needed first. You say, hey, man, I'm going to buy me some land. I'm going to build a house on it. You ever built a house? No, but you telling me I can't do it? I'm doing it. Yeah, you build a house and it's lopsided. But hey, man, at least you had the balls to do it. Excuse my Kiswahili, but, at least you had the courage to do it. You see? So a lot of times, the more we know, the more fearful we become. So we take these people who they're just regurgitating, they like computers, regurgitating a bunch of facts, and we assume them in the place of courageous leadership without realizing that the greatest leaders don't have a whole bunch of information, because the more information you have, the more scared you're going to become. Like me walking in the bush at 1 a.m. What could be out there that could bite me on my foot? So I don't know. I ain't even thinking about it. I'm going to go handle this business. I'll deal with it later. You see, so you need a little bit of that ignorance. I know that sounds crazy, man. I know it does, especially for those of you who have really come to the point where you're idolizing the means, but you may not see that the intelligence is a mean to the end. It should not be the destination. It's a means to the end. And some people may have intelligence, or again, some of this stuff I look at is not even intelligent. It's just regurgitation. Some people are real good at sitting down and studying other people and just copying them and parroting. That's their gift. And we look at that and we say, wow, they should start their own. No. They should have their own community. That not necessarily. They may not have what it takes, but maybe we need somebody who's like a computer. That's a position. But we need other stuff too. So yeah, people want the garbage, man, because it just confirms and identifies the garbage in them that they don't want to get rid of. So just like if you have a leader, like you have some of these whack mega church leaders, they get caught up in all kind of scandals, but you may have some of that same scandalous behavior inside of you. So if you find out they got caught, the first thing what you gonna say? See, that's why we gotta forgive, because you want to be forgiven. See, we so quick to tear our own down. That ain't tearing somebody down just because you're giving critique. We're supposed to be critiquing our leaders. Your punk ass, excuse me. You decided you wanted to stand up there and be a leader. So that means the spotlight is on you. So you can't do what everybody does or do certain things and then sit back with your hands and like, hey man, I'm only human. If you're at that place where you can still say, hey, I'm only human, then your behind should not be teaching. Sit down. Sit down. It's not for you yet. You got some growing to do. That's the same thing I say about me. If you find something foul about me, that means everything I've given you up until to this point has been poisoned, because I wasn't supposed to be here to begin with. Now, does that mean that I'm perfect? No, I'm not perfect. There's things that I'm still working on. In fact, I'll tell you this. I probably have more things I'm working on than most of you listening. Because the greater the responsibility, the greater the burden. You see? So stuff that I have to deal with, maybe at a whole totally different level. And plus, because I'm in a disposition, I'm more aware of my stuff, especially because I interact with a lot of people who have problems. So I'm seeing myself in some of their problems. Like, man, I do that same thing. Shoot. And the diagnosis that I'm giving them, heck, I guess I need to take some of my own medicine. That's a daily experience. You see? But you can't get into these positions, man. You got people scamming people. They're putting their private lives on display, and then you're seeing all of this unsteadiness, and their private lives where they're saying one thing today and saying the opposite tomorrow. They're insulting people. They don't have their ego in check. They don't have their emotions in check. They don't have intrapersonal skills. They don't even have interpersonal skills. They don't know how to deal with people. They'll tell you, yeah, I'm a leader, but I'm not a people person. That doesn't even make any damn sense. So you can't even interact with the people who you're trying to lead or build communities for and things like that. If you ain't a people, what kind of person are you? A devil person? Oh, but I can interact with some demons. I'm not a people person. I'm a demon person. Or you got the other famous one. Well, I just deal with my spirits. Yeah, you can't, but you can't deal with the spirits that are inhabiting the flesh bodies of walking around you. It's because you're flawed. You're broken. Sit your butt down. You should not be up teaching. Just because you know a lot and you figured out I can make money off of what I know doesn't mean you should be standing up there doing it. You might not be ready for that. That's why you hear me say things like, yeah, man, this thing's in my past. We all got to start somewhere. Even I wasn't always Chief Yuya, but I may feel bad about some things that I've experienced or gone through or partook in my younger years, but I'm not ashamed about anything. And anything that I may have done once I really, really started to go hard on the community work and the teaching, you ain't going to find anything about me. You're not going to find anything bad. You're not going to find anyone to say anything verifiably bad about me. You may have somebody who's in their feelings and maybe like, yeah, he kicked me out or we had a argument or something. You may find, you're always going to find that. But you're not going to find anything, any craziness. I know you're not. If you do, I know some made up stuff. And the stuff that I have heard that's come back to me has always been made up. I've had somebody who left I knew once because she got a reading. This is a person who never even been inside my house, but got a reading that said that if she ever came to my house, I was going to try to like come into a bedroom and sleep with her. And that, to watch out for me. This is a reading from a reader I don't even know. And from an individual who I would never even invite to my house. I would never have her up in my house. So that's the only type of stuff you're going to get on me, some made up stuff. Something that's made up. And coincidentally, I should also say this is an individual who came on to me and who I rejected, which let me add that little tidbit in. So people get in their feelings and they need to get confirmation on their own stupidity. Or a reason. Well, why did he reject me? Well, I got to go get a reading. I'm going to keep getting readings until somebody tells me he's foul. Now I feel better, even though he never did anything foul. So it's got to be make-believe. If you go to his house, So what I'm saying in that sense is that if you're not at that point where you can stand behind your projection, good, bad, or indifferent, and be willing to apologize for things that you may say or do that may mislead the people, sit your butt down. You're not ready for this. This is not for everybody. There's going to be some things that you're going to want to partake in that you can't partake in. There's going to be some things that you're going to have to leave alone that everyone else around you seems to be able to do, but you just can't do. You just can't do it. I told a brother the other day that the finest women are in the conscious community. The finest women on the planet are in the conscious community. Now, some of the most craziest women in the planet are also in the conscious community, but they're very good looking. They're eating right, they're exercising, they're doing yoga, they're doing spiritual rituals, they're dressing, or some of them are dressing respectfully. So you're getting the best and the highest quality of women in that environment. You see, so if you go into that environment and you want to be a teacher or a leader or whatever you call yourself, as a male, if you don't have your emotions or your voids, in proper perspective, it can really be very confusing. It can really be very overwhelming in that environment, especially if outside of that, you never, you didn't know how to relate to women. You didn't have, any situations or opportunities where females were really giving you some rhythm, So now you get into this environment and now you're heralded because of what you say you're about or what you say you teach or your projection, and you lose your mind. You're like a kid in a candy store. You don't know how to act right. You see? you need to sit down. It's not for you just yet, partner. There's plenty of time to teach. Like I've said before, most people don't even know, you really don't even kick in full steam on your life purpose until 60. You saw an image of me sitting in a room full of elders. In that particular village, you're not an elder until 74. You think about that. You're not considered elder class until 74. Up until 74, up until that point, like the youth in the village still call me uncle. They let them call me Uncle Baba. I'll be Uncle Baba until 74. Uncle. You see? So what I'm saying is that a lot of times y'all don't realize that, you know, you might be 20, 21 or 25 or 30 or maybe even 35, 40. You read a couple of books. Now you want to jump out there and cheat. And you don't even understand that in a healthy environment, you still got 30 more years to go before you can, you know, open your mouth freely and speak with that level of authority. You see? In a healthy community. Now here, I have to admit that, you know, we tend to, the numbers have to be played with a little bit because a lot of times that our elder class doesn't really behave like elders. And because of the level of this health, it's not like back home, you know, a lot of people not living to 90, 100 years old. They're transpiring in their 60s, you see. So it's a little bit different. You know, it's a little bit different, but just keep that in mind in a healthy environment. Some of these people up talking need to sit down. I don't care how young they are, how fascinated you are, because they learn. The youngest ones sometimes say the stupidest things. And then when they're confronted on their stupidity, they start cursing everybody out. You the bitch. You the bitch. You the bitch. You know who I'm talking about. And with that being said, you the bitch. You know, like, yo, chill, man. Sit down. You ain't ready. You ain't ready, young bull. Sit down. You got some time. There's other things you could be doing in the meantime, man. Get your paper up. Build an empire. You know, get some real estate. Get some assets underneath your belt. You know, start a business. And then when you get around that 30, you know, mid-30 area, start a family. You know, raise some boys and girls for a little while. Learn the dynamics of a woman for a little while, man. And then maybe when you get around, you know, your 50s, then get up on the podium. I know you don't want to hear that, but hey, it is what it is. All right, so I'm gonna let us go because we have the men's call at 1, man, and I don't want to stomp on it. So you know, I'm gonna let the brothers do what they need to do. And I will be back, of course. Well, no. Next Sunday is the student call. So anybody wants to participate in that, you know, even though I know we got a lot of poop butts, but anybody who wants to participate in that, you call the same conference line number and we'll patch you in for the students discussion, you know, if you ain't acting like a poop butt. All right. So everyone be safe, the strong man. Think about the things we talked about and things that we working on in terms of moving past that undevelopment, man. And don't mistake, you know, your finger for the moon. Don't get caught up in the means, but focus on the destination of where we're actually going. And in order to do that, you're going to have to show some love, man. You got to be able to transfer your consciousness and get to a certain space. All right. So in such time, man, you guys be safe. You guys be well. And, you know, stand firm. Peace.